Good afternoon and welcome to the second of Legal Aid Alberta's webinar series in celebration of our 50th anniversary. My name is Wyatt Fraser and I'm Legal Aid Alberta's engagement facilitator. So thanks for joining us today for the webinar, The Vital Role of Duty Counsel in Our Justice System. When dealing with the police or courts, it's critical to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and what options are available. Today's webinar will provide key information about duty counsel services available in Alberta and how duty counsel help protect your rights. In a democracy, the principles of justice and the protection of legal rights are the cornerstone upon which society is built. These principles remind us that every individual deserves equal protection under the law, regardless of their circumstances. At Legal Aid Alberta, this belief is not just a sentiment, it's the very purpose that drives us. Helping to ensure an effective, efficient, and balanced justice system since 1973, our dedicated team of lawyers, frontline workers, and administrative professionals strive to not only protect the rights of disadvantaged Albertans, but ensure their individual voices are heard. Through our work, we provide solutions to promote and enhance not only our clients' well-being, but that of our communities as well. Legal Aid Alberta represents approximately 35,000 Albertans at any given time, spanning 75 communities across our province. Additionally, our Justice of the Peace Bail program conducts approximately 30,000 bail hearings annually, and our lawyers help apply for over 2,000 emergency protection orders each year to safeguard those facing domestic violence. Duty counsel lawyers serve countless thousands of Albertans every year by providing free legal advice to those appearing in court for the first time. Public education is a key priority for us. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand on our website later next week. By default, your microphones and cameras are disabled. That way you're able to focus on our presenters today, but you can engage with us and ask questions using the Q&A feature in Teams. As a reminder, this session is not intended as a forum to obtain legal advice about a specific situation, but rather aims to educate about general legal processes and Legal Aid Alberta services. To ask a question, you can click the Q&A button at the top of your Teams window. You can enter your question in the dialog box that appears and then click Post. We will leave time at the end for questions and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. I'm also going to share a link at the end of today's session for attendees to complete a quick anonymous survey, as we'd love to hear from you about your feedback for today's session, as well as any suggestions you might have for other topics that you'd be interested in learning about. In the spirit of reconciliation with Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Canada, Legal Aid Alberta makes a solemn pledge to work towards positive change in the legal system for fair representation with consideration of these communities' unique and historical situations. We respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on the ancestral and traditional territory and travel routes of many peoples, including those on the land of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani Siksika, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Stoney Nakoda, Tsuut'ina Nation, Cree, and the Métis people of Alberta. We recognize the challenges faced by our Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit clients involved in the justice system. We commit to meaningfully respond to the Truth and Reconciliation call to action and the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls call for justice. To do this, we strive for action and accountability through our Indigenous Action Plan. This plan aims to continuously engage with these communities to better develop relationships, opportunities, programs, and practices to best serve our clients. At Legal Aid Alberta, we're committed to providing education for management and staff on the history of Indigenous peoples. We are working to establish panels of lawyers trained on the history of Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit clients and communities with consideration of their history under the laws of Canada. We are participants and dedicated members of the Indigenous courts in Alberta. In an act of reconciliation and gratitude, we acknowledge all Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We express our continued thanks to be able to work on these lands and to represent Albertans in this territory. And it's now my pleasure to introduce our presenters for today. So we have Legal Aid Alberta staff lawyers Cameron Mitchell and Jay Gill, who will be walking us through the vital role of duty counsel. With that, I'll turn it over to the two of you guys.
Hey there, and I think I'm starting out. So Cameron Mitchell, and thank you very much, Wyatt. Great to see the turnout today. I can't see any of you, but there's a lot of numbers there. So yeah, I kind of feel like a YouTuber. So this is my debut on that forum. But what we're here to talk about today is a little bit about the things that people like Jay and myself do as duty counsel, and go through what's happening on October 27th, which is Duty Counsel Day. So everybody seems to have a different day, and there's a different day for everything. So October 27th, we share Duty Counsel Day with it's National Beer Day in America, and it's Black Cat Day in the UK. But here in Canada, it's about us, it's about Duty Counsel, and it's also about all of the great people behind us that make our jobs efficient. And we have an absolutely amazing team at Legal Aid that allow us to do what we do on a daily basis, which is help out people on the ground floor in court. So moving on to the next slide here. So Duty Counsel. And there's a lot of sort of catchy words here and phrases, but a lot of this really is true. As Duty Counsel, we are on a mission to serve Albertans, often the most vulnerable of Albertans. We're dedicated to our jobs. We're compassionate. We're capable. A lot of the staff lawyers come from very strong backgrounds in whatever our field is. Jay and I, we are both criminal duty counsel. I've practiced as a criminal lawyer for almost 10 years now. Jay comes from an extensive background. She even worked for the Crown's office at one point. So we are very capable in what we do, and we're able to help out multiple people on any given day. So in a lot of ways, we're the legal team that you didn't even know that you had. So moving on to sort of the purpose of Duty Counsel and why we exist. We are an essential service within the justice system. There are a lot of other countries and even provinces that don't have as strong or robust of a duty counsel system as we do. Now, when I say duty counsel, I'm referring to somebody has an appearance in court. They show up on the day of that appearance, and they have a lawyer that they can speak to. That is us. That is what duty counsel is. And we have duty counsel lawyers that provide immediate legal information on the day of. We also will follow a lot of files, so we're in touch with clients in between appearances, and we are across a multiple different courtrooms. So we do criminal duty counsel is what Jay and I do. We'll get into this later on, but there's family duty counsel, there's mental health duty counsel, and we're kind of all over the place. But Alberta is very special, and Legal Aid Alberta does a great job in making sure that if somebody has an appearance in court, there is going to be a lawyer there to assist them, and that's us as duty counsel. So the sort of role that we play and why we're needed, the access to justice, and that was kind of referenced in the last slide, but we're free. And lawyers, private lawyers, they take retainers, they get paid. Even if there are clients that are going through the legal aid system, there's financial eligibility guidelines for them. So it's not a guarantee that somebody with a family matter or a criminal matter is going to be appointed a roster lawyer. But especially in the early on stages, they're guaranteed to have one of us there in court to help them out. We help to make sure that legal rights are protected. The legal system's very confusing, especially for people that don't know what is going on with the system. They show up in a big courtroom, a crowded place. They have no idea what is going on. We go through all of their different rights, and that can be all sorts of different rights from their charter rights to their legal rights with regards to family issues. But we're able to give them a brief analysis of sort of what they're facing and point them in the right direction. And that gets into the legal guidance part of it, because a lot of what we do is we make sure that we point people in the right direction, or we're able to actually help them out and do something to sort of resolve their file on the day of. We're able to advise of jeopardy, consequences. We're also a great conduit going back and forth with the Crown. We save the court a lot of time and a lot of money. Anybody here that's sort of familiar with the court system, and one of the most dreaded words that you can hear is churn. And especially in docket courtrooms, churn is awful. That is when files just cycle around and around again and again in court without anything happening. That is a big burden on the justice system. And as duty counsel, part of our job is to make sure that as little churn happens as possible. And sort of the offset of that is cost savings. And we are a free service on the front lines. And in the long run, we end up saving organizations like Legal Aid a lot of money in appointing different roster lawyers for tasks. But we also save the Crown's money on their side and the court system overall a lot of money. And procedural assistance is another big thing that we do. And that's kind of like the how-to. So if somebody shows up in court and they don't really know exactly what to do or where to go for information, we help out. So we help out with the how-to. Maybe it's applying to legal aid for a roster lawyer. Maybe it's trying to help them with a brief review of disclosure, maybe booking a trial, giving them some advice if they're going to go to trial themselves. Maybe it's helping fill out forms, file motions, all sorts of different things. So that's one of the things that we do, and that doesn't even get into the nitty-gritty. And as criminal duty counsel, we do a lot of bail hearings every single shift that we have. We do multiple guilty pleas, but we are really the ground floor in the courtroom, helping make sure that justice works as efficiently as it can. And I will hand it over to you, Jay.
Thank you, Cameron. Hello, everyone. So what Cameron was saying, I mean, fits right in here. I'm not sure if a lot of you guys are aware of how many people we assist on a daily basis. Actually, a lot of times when we're going into court in various courtrooms, we're not even aware of how many people we're going to be assisting in a given day. I personally, as a duty counsel, have, helped anywhere from a minimum of 10 people to 30 plus on a morning docket. Across Canada, duty counsel assists 1.2 million people every year. It's phenomenal, the number of people that we help on a daily basis, a weekly basis. And like Cameron had said earlier, we do save a lot of time, and the help that we provide individuals that come into court, whether they've been here before, it's their first time ever dealing with this system, that not only helps them understand what their rights are and how the procedure is going to unfold or what's going to happen, what to expect. It also helps the courts with ensuring that everything is running smoothly with duty counsel there. Sometimes when you're looking down the halls, you can't even imagine how certain people would get through with their court appearances had they not had any assistance or any legal representation. Next slide, go ahead. So across Alberta, Legal Aid Alberta uses a hybrid model that incorporates both staff lawyers and roster lawyers as duty counsel. So we have Legal Aid has criminal staff lawyers in the following cities. As you can see there, Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, Taskwin. And we also have our family staff lawyers in Edmonton, Calgary, Lethbridge, and Red Deer. We have a number of roster lawyers that do take on legal aid certificates. When we come to a point in court as well, sometimes we have clients that are requesting a certain lawyer and they don't know how to approach legal aid for having that lawyer assigned to them. We also assist them in kind of connecting them with that counsel. And I have acted as an agent for a number of counsel that have been assigned to clients as well, where they can't make it to court that day. So in any case, clients are not left without assistance on their matters. And our roster lawyers we have a great team of roster lawyers that are there and always willing to step in and help as well. So it's teamwork there. Okay. Services that are provided in Alberta, we for criminal matters, like Cameron said, both him and I are criminal duty counsel. We provide youth and adult bridge services, which is 24/7 on-call legal aid advice to Albertans under arrest. We provide JP bail duty counsel services, where legal advice and representation for Albertans facing bail hearing before a justice of peace is available. So even when they get arrested, they're not left unattended or lost. They have access to duty counsel. Our bail unit is phenomenal. They do help the clients there and then pass on information for duty counsel in court to take over matters as well. So they're not just dealt with for bail and then left unattended. That is carried on to duty counsel in various courtrooms on the next court appearances. In court duty counsel, we provide legal advice and representation on the day of court, including specialty courts in certain locations. We have the mental health court in Edmonton. We don't have one in Calgary as of yet. The drug treatment court, domestic violence court, Indigenous courts, youth docket courts, and protection of children abusing drug matters are also represented by duty counsel. In a day, we're not sure what kind of matters we're going to come across. There's one thing I would like to add on to what Cameron was saying. There are a number of things that we do in a day as duty counsel. In addition to, sometimes we're unexpectedly taking on matters that we weren't expecting to, or have justices requesting us to step in to assist with situations that nobody can handle. So you have, for example, counsel withdrawing off, going off record for a matter. That person's matter is not left unattended. Duty counsel is then requested to step in to further assist and guide that individual further. In a day, I can't say that I'm going to walk into a courtroom. I had a situation, for example, last week where I was duty counsel in a domestic courtroom. However, there was a serious matter in custody in courtroom 305 in Calgary, and they didn't know what to do with that after a number of lawyers had been, off record, on record, and that matter was put over to 508. And I was assisting clients when the justice requested me to step in and to see if duty counsel could further assist on this matter that nobody knew how to manage. And right away, I had to meet with this individual, and we did manage to have that matter moving forward. So we go in with a certain expectation, and our day unfolds in a certain way. When everyone else can say no, duty counsel can't say no. So I just wanted to add that bit there. Thank you, Cameron. So as requested in our tasks, continue on with our tasks, as requested and appropriate based on circumstances, we, like Cameron mentioned, we do bail hearings, we negotiate and correspond with Crown. Those are the early case resolution positions, or going back, not agreeing with a position if the client's not agreeing, or if there's additional information that the Crown is not aware of, that now we have that access to that information. And a lot of times that does impact the Crown's position, and they do kind of renegotiate and then present us with a different position that from what they initially gave for the client to review. Guilty pleas and sentencing, we review disclosure, we request disclosure for clients as well. A lot of times, a lot of clients that come in don't have access to computers or are homeless, for example. At that point, we will then request the disclosure to be provided to us through the Crowns, and they do work with us to provide us that disclosure so we can review and give that information to clients that don't have access to it otherwise. And then once again, procedural navigation. Duty counsel, we're not trial counsel. So we assist clients to a certain point, and for example, say that we've helped them to a point where we've gotten an ECR position for the client and the client is not agreeing to take that position. Then we assist those individuals further with not only setting the trial dates, but also then further referring them to a trial lawyer or a group of, we also have a department with Legal Aid Alberta where there are duty counsel that do run trials, and we try to get them representation through them. Once again, they will not be left unassisted, whether they qualify for a lawyer or if someone from our CTG group takes them on. We will try our best to ensure that they're helped from the beginning to the end. And Duty Counsel will assess criminal matters, and if the Crown is seeking jail time upon conviction, they will be provided a referral to legal aid once again. A referral will be made to a roster lawyer to pick up that certificate.
Yes, and that's awesome, Jay. And I love your comments about how, at least for us, and as the sort of feet on the ground, as the criminal duty counsel that are in court, how we have these tasks and we have our nice little PowerPoint, but honestly, every day looks different. And Justice Cote way back in a decision that for the life of me, I can't remember the name of, but he referred to defense counsel as fighter pilots. And at any point, we got to be ready to throw on the goggles and hop on the plane. Well, for duty counsel, it's that times 100. So that is something that we take pride on, is kind of being these jack of all trades, being able to juggle a lot of different hats at once and ultimately serve multiple different people. Now, getting to one of the specialized courtrooms that we have in both Calgary and in Edmonton, that's domestic violence court. Now, domestic violence court is important, number one, because domestic violence is becoming a very big issue throughout Canada. But it's also very important because this is something that is relatively new. And it's something that actually in a lot of ways was spearheaded by Legal Aid and spearheaded in a lot of ways by our duty counsel team. So this was started back in Edmonton, at least Justice Doyle was one of the originators of domestic violence court. And it was started to really address this problem of domestic violence. And part of it is sort of twofold. Number one is making sure that domestic offenders are treated appropriately. Now, since then, there's been multiple changes to the criminal code, even with regards to bails and reverse onus if it's a domestic situation, things like that. The other big part about domestic violence cases that kind of flies under the radar is a lot of times the complainants or the victims in domestic violence cases really aren't feeling like they're heard. So domestic violence court was set up in Edmonton and in Calgary to ensure that the voices of the complainants are being heard. Now, we play a big role, not only in the creation and the management of domestic violence court. I mean, as duty counsel, I know in Edmonton, we have staff duty counsel that are currently on the boards for domestic violence court in Edmonton. So we play a big role in how it's managed and organized, as well as getting out exactly how it works to the general defense bar. So we do that. We do our regular duty counsel tasks in dealing with clients, so accused people on the day of. But we're also in a kind of special position as duty counsel, where a lot of times we're able to speak to the complainants in these matters and help them navigate that process. So domestic violence court in Edmonton's in courtroom 268. And it's set up so that if a complainant wants to show up the day of, there's going to be a team there that's involved of several members of the police or social service agencies, such as Child and Family Services. They're there. And then there's the Crown. So they're able to work through us to speak with that team to make sure that they're actually heard. And I know Jay actually has spent some time in domestic violence court in Calgary. I think it's kind of similar, but I'm not sure if you have anything that you want to add.
Well, we have, yes, we also, I believe they might be called a bit different in Edmonton, but we have the home front, for example, in Calgary, and then same the Crowns, and then social workers, and we have our interpreters as well that help us help the client through the day. So it's a pretty similar, I would say, similar to the domestic violence courtroom in Edmonton. So
thanks. And then another one of these specialized courtrooms, which we always have staffed by Duty Counsel, is an Indigenous court. Now, Indigenous Court is in Edmonton. This was actually launched here. Judge Cochard spearheaded it. And it's also in Calgary. I think Jay even mentioned that's the courtroom she's currently in today. But Indigenous Court is really focused on, number one, restorative justice and healing. So it's trying to figure out, why do we have this overrepresentation of Indigenous people, and also making sure that the harm of things like residential schools, the 60s scoop, the millennial scoop, I deal with people that have been to Indian Day schools, all of them, making sure that that trauma that they have in their past family history or their immediate history is noted and it's brought before the courts. Now, the other big part of Indigenous court is trying to get something done a little bit differently, because the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in jails is ridiculous. We're almost 30% of Indigenous people in custody right now. 30% of people in custody right now are Indigenous. Only 4% of the population is Indigenous. That's a huge number. If you're talking about use, it's even more. It's up to 46% of all use in custody are Indigenous. And again, it's only 4% of the population. So the current model has not worked. So Indigenous court is trying to figure out a way that can work. And it's been largely successful, although it is a work in progress in both Edmonton and Calgary. One thing that's pretty cool is if you show up in Indigenous court, it's going to look way different than a normal courtroom. They're trying to adopt more of a sentencing circle feel. So you have a lot of different things from Indigenous culture that are actually woven in to the procedure in those courtrooms. So there's a big table. The justice is sitting down there along with the accused, along with the defense counsel or duty counsel if we're helping out, and the Crown, and then a bunch of other organizations. So Native Counseling is in there. We have the Yellowhead Tribal Council in there as well. And then there's also elders. And the elders in a lot of ways lead that courtroom. They'll start out with a morning prayer. There's also smudging ceremonies. There's blanket ceremonies. But it's about trying to figure out a way that can work. And once again, Legal Aid has really been at the forefront of Indigenous courts in these different places. We're even looking at starting another Indigenous court, and there's a lot of great work being done out in Maskwacis and the Wetaskiwin courthouse. So it is something that we're very proud of as Legal Aid employees, but certainly as duty counsel, and actually being able to, on a daily basis, be in that courtroom, helping out these people that really have not had that great of a voice, and trying to figure out a way that within the court system, these accused people can be properly heard, so that we stop just the cycle that we seem to be caught in with the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in custody right now. And I will hand it over to you for the next slide, Jay.
Thank you, Cameron. And Cameron is right. I actually am just sitting outside of the Calgary Indigenous courtroom, well, attending to court matters and assisting while I'm also being part of this webinar today. This courtroom has a significant impact on the clients that come through this courtroom. And what amazed me as a duty counsel when I was attending to other courtrooms is how many people are not aware of the resources and the help that's provided through the Indigenous courtroom. And we do have a great team in Calgary Indigenous courtroom that consists of Elizabeth Fry Society, the Native Counseling Services, John Howard Society, the probation officers. We have a Calgary Police Service community constable that also sits in this courtroom on a weekly basis, someone from Homefront, a peacemaker, an elder, as well, in addition to Duty Counsel with Legal Aid Alberta, and then both the provincial and federal prosecutors. And everyone works as a team to ensure that we can help these individuals move forward in their lives and ensure that they're assisted and provided resources when it comes down to their healing and years of this trauma that has been built up that they've never addressed, which causes them to repetitively come back into the system. And a focus is not only to not have them come back to this system. However, when they leave this courtroom, they have been assisted and provided with the resources they need to move past what their struggles have been. I have been part of this courtroom for a year now, and I have seen a number of success stories and people that have been going in and out of the system for years that now have actually broken through that vicious cycle and do come back to even speak and be inspiration to others that are now starting their healing in this courtroom. And the way I always put it to clients is everyone is here for them, not against them, and that's to help them. And a lot of the success in this courtroom and those stories, it's not just our contribution, but it's the individual's contribution to their own healing as well. And it gives them an opportunity to share their stories. The elders that work in this courtroom are phenomenal. We currently have Elder Scout that's here on a weekly basis and starts the morning with a prayer in his own language and then translates it for us. And then also leaves everybody in that courtroom, whether it's the prosecutors or anybody sitting on the round table, the clients and the justice, with the thought of the day. So we also get to engage and learn more about the Indigenous culture and the reason why we're all participating in this courtroom. In Calgary, as in Edmonton, we used to have this courtroom run once a week, and it started really getting the dockets got really busy. Now you can just imagine how many people want to participate and get on a healing plan. So as of a month or so ago, Calgary has Indigenous courtroom sitting twice a week. And then we also have our meetings prior to court on Tuesday afternoons where everyone gets together and discusses individual matters and to also see how well everyone is progressing on their healing plans and what to do next. So we're always here from point one from the beginning to the end to ensure that we provide further assistance and help and have those discussions prior to court where the individual is not left feeling that they're put on the spot and don't know what to do next. And the justices are very, very friendly to work with as well. And mostly when I have clients in here, I let them have a seat and the justices like to have a discussion, and having that round table environment makes them feel comfortable as well, where they feel that they're just, they're chatting about their life and how they're moving forward. And the reason why we have the second day of Indigenous court in the week is we will address the dockets on Wednesdays, and then anything that's set for bail or sentencing or anything that's a bit complicated and requires more time will then be adjourned to a Friday to be dealt with there, so that no one is being rushed, no matter is being rushed, and every matter is addressed with the appropriate time.
All right. Now, we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about what Jay and myself do on a daily basis as criminal duty counsel. But that's not the only type of duty counsel in Alberta that Legal Aid offers. Now, as far as duty counsel on the family side, we're in various courtrooms throughout the province. So number one, emergency protective orders. So if you have an individual that has a fear, intimate partner or of a family member, and they want to apply for an emergency protective order, we have duty counsel that are available, and they're available by telephone, 780-422-9222. and they'll walk them through the process. They'll help them out with the application. There's also an office for our EPO Duty Counsel team, physically at the Edmonton Courthouse. It's up on the 3rd floor. I believe it's the same thing in Calgary. So we have a lot of different duty counsels doing a lot of different things. The Emergency Protective Order team will also help with reviews. So if you are either a person that applies for an EPO, then you can contact, and Legal Aid will assign a duty counsel lawyer to assist you. Or if you've had somebody apply for an EPO against you and you want assistance, you can contact that same team and you'll have a lawyer assigned to assist you. So we're there to help out through the whole process of EPOs. We're also there to help out with child welfare. Now, child welfare, we staff courts. I believe it's in the mornings in Edmonton. Not sure about Calgary, but that's in Family Court, 441 in Edmonton, 1215 in Calgary. And there's going to be physical duty counsel there to help out anybody that walks in. So if they have an issue with guardianship, with a temporary guardianship, permanent guardianship, supervision order, there's going to be duty counsel there. They'll help with filling out all the forms. They'll even help out with some of the actual initial hearing itself and getting some of the evidence before the court. But there is going to be duty counsel there to assist. And then for general family court, so people going through divorces or child custody issues with regards to separation, we also staff in duty counsel. Same places in Edmonton, 441 and 1215 in Calgary. Jay also mentioned earlier on in some of the slides, we're also duty counsel. We have family duty counsel in other cities in the province. But Jay and I, we're just a small part of this broad duty counsel team in Alberta, and we do a lot of other things, including family law. Now, another service that we provide as duty counsel is mental health reviews. Now, these mental health reviews, this is different than somebody that's sort of criminally charged, and they're going to argue something along the lines of not criminally responsible. However, quite often there is a lot of overlap with criminal law and these mental health reviews. A mental health review is for somebody that is either they are basically in custody because of mental health issues. So by way of some sort of a Form 10 mental health warrant or something like that, or maybe it was a previous not criminally responsible finding, but either way, they are in custody for mental health issues in a place like Alberta Hospital. Now, for those people, they are entitled to reviews. Now, those reviews and when they happen, it's sort of different for every person, but duty counsel, we do those. And I've attended and I've done some of those at Alberta Hospital. So you walk in there, ground floor, and you're talking to people that a lot of them are actually pretty darn smart, but at least for the legalities and what their rights are and their responsibilities are, they might be a little bit lost. So we help them, we walk them through that, and we actually conduct these mental health review panels on their behalf. As mentioned in the slides, that's a 3-person quasi-judicial panel. That's basically the panel consists of mental health professionals, but we do help out with those hearings. We also help out with people that are under community treatment orders. So those are people that aren't sort of in custody in a place like Alberta Hospital. However, by way of the Mental Health Act, they have been deemed that they need to be on some type of supervision. So they're on different things. Maybe it's a curfew, maybe it's conditions that they got to follow up on taking medication. But again, they are entitled to these reviews in front of these panels. And we as legal aid staff those duty counsel to help out those individuals with those reviews. So once again, it just sort of reflects the broad range of services that we provide at Legal Aid, and at least as duty counsel, sort of the broad range of kind of skills and abilities that we have. Because quite frankly, we do a lot of different things. Every day is going to look different, but our ultimate goal is to help out people that are truly in need. And a lot of times we are dealing with people that are the most vulnerable, and people with mental health issues quite often fall in that box. So I will slide it along to you for the next one, Jay.
Thank you, Cameron. So impact, as you can see, the numbers before you of the number of emergency protection orders files that were opened and where duty counsel assisted, include also with justice of peace bail hearings, and then the scheduled court shifts by duty counsel. When we're doing these shifts, and these numbers are from the Legal Aid Alberta 2022-2023 annual report, as mentioned on the slide. When we are in court, and I'm pretty sure Cameron can also relate to this, we have no idea that we are impacting or playing a significant role in the lives of these many people, and how many people we're assisting, because as duty counsel, I'm not keeping track of how many people I'm helping. My core mission for that day is to ensure that the client that I'm coming across, whether they require a bail plan put together for a bail, whether it's negotiating a position and helping them conclude their matter, or further negotiating and having those discussions with the Crown, or addressing questions and further concerns, is to help that individual in front of me. And to ensure that when that individual leaves court that day or gets off the phone with me on that day, they are comfortable knowing that they're being helped and they're not left unattended. So these numbers are there, and that shows how much dedication and hard work that gets put through and how important these vulnerable individuals are. And once again, going back to what I said earlier, you can't even imagine how many people come to court that have no idea where to start and what to expect. I have come across individuals, for example, that have come in, they're like, we're just going to plead guilty, without knowing what they're pleading guilty to and what the impact that guilty plea will have on them in their future. And the only reason they want to do it is because someone told them that just go in and do this and accept this and take the position, and that way it'll be done and dealt with, and they wouldn't have to come back to court again because it was a waste of time, without understanding the consequences. And we deal with a lot of young individuals as well. I believe when I stepped into duty counsel position myself, the first matter that I helped someone with having their charges withdrawn over working with them and the Crown for a number of months was a young lady who was initially came into court to enter a guilty plea and just take the Crown's position, who didn't have a criminal record, for example, but she was a university student. And she didn't realize, if she ended up with that criminal record, what impact it would have, not during her studies, but upon completion, when she would have to go and seek employment in that field. And I remember after I had been in a discussion with the Crown, which took a few months, and we finally ended up having those charges withdrawn, that this young lady with her mother broke down and cried in the hallway outside of that courtroom. And so the impact is huge on individuals that don't know what they're walking into and what they're going to be facing. And this slide confirms what I just said earlier. Duty counsel often assists people during one of the most difficult times of their life. I have individuals that had, for example, really good businesses that were running, and then during COVID or life circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, they've lost their business. That's had an impact on their financial situation, and they've ended up with charges with just trying to, for example, theft under at a grocery store, because they just need to get some food for the day for their family, and they didn't have money. And those were circumstances that led them to that position. And they never thought. I've had people break down and cry in the courthouse saying, we never imagined we'd be in this position for this. we are first line of defense for dealing with the complexity of the justice system. There's people that come in that have no clue. Once again, going back to my earlier example of what entering into guilty pleas, taking the Crown's position and getting the matter done and over with is. I've had people that have come in, self-represented themselves and set their matters for trial without knowing what options they had prior to having those matters set for trial, or how they were going to be running those trials as self-representatives. Because they just thought they could come into court and just tell the judge their story, and then that was it. And we often, we do help the society's most disadvantaged people. We come across people that have mental health issues, and I'm glad we do, because at that point we have a grip on that situation, and then we can provide them with resources or guide them to those resources where they can get further help. Low-income individuals, and individuals that come from, you know, a marginalized group or background here, and homeless people, for example, that are in very unfortunate situations. I've dealt with so many people that, once again, don't have access to, they don't have a phone, they don't have a computer, they don't even know when their next court dates are. So they'll end up with one charge, but then they'll have 19 failure to appears because now they have no clue of what's going on and where they can turn for help. And when you can represent those people, it's phenomenal, because you become a voice for them, and they don't know how to represent themselves because they just feel that, you know what, we've done something wrong, we're in trouble, we're the bad guy. So we'll just take whatever we're going to be handed, without having access to, once again, those resources that are provided to them. Coming back to the Indigenous courtroom, for example, there are many people from the Indigenous background that come into the regular docket courts that aren't even aware of the resources that they can have access to. I have helped a number of people that were homeless, for example, that weren't aware that through eFry, their case managers can help them with finding safe and secure housing. For example, they can get assistance with that, or that we can help them with rehab. For example, I have done applications for people that need to go into rehab and detox, and the only reason why they weren't able to have access and get started in a rehab institution is because now they don't have a computer, they can't print out an application form, they can't fax those forms. I have also helped some of them get connected with doctors that assist them with their substance abuse issues and put them on medication to help them fight that addiction as well.
Thanks, guys. I was just saying we have about 12 minutes left, so we did want to open it up because we said we'd have some time for questions here. I have also enabled the chat because I know sometimes the Q&A feature can be a little confusing to get to. So you can see on screen, you can either use the chat window or you can use the Q&A feature just to ask any questions. Again, unfortunately, we're not able to provide any specific legal advice, so Jer, Cameron aren't able to answer any of your specific questions. But if you just had some more general questions about their experience, their practices, about their daily work, you're welcome to ask in chat. We had a copy of, can we get, sorry, there's a question, can we get a copy of the presentation? Yep. So we'll have a PDF version of the PowerPoint that will go out probably early to mid next week. For anyone that missed it, we did record today's session. So we're linked to the recording. A copy of the PowerPoint will be sent to all attendees. And the recording will also be available on our website that can be shared as well. All right, so we had a question, can duty counsel help someone before their court date?
Of course they can. So if I've had calls, for example, if somebody had, say, their court appearance at CMO, and they're working out of city, and they can't make it to court, they've called the courthouse to let them know that we're aware we have court on this day. However, due to this circumstance, we can't make it. How can we get help with this? And the clerks will most often give them a number for duty counsel that day. For example, if I'm in CMO on a Tuesday, they will call and they will A, ask me for instructions or give me instructions for their matters, and B, ask questions as to what steps they can take to resolve that matter. And we can often appear for them and adjourn the matter further, provide them with that legal advice that they need, and address any legal questions that they have, and then proceed from that point onwards.
Okay, we had a question, where do duty counsel go for advice? So let's say if a duty counsel's a little bit out of their depth or they needs a bit more help, where would they go for further guidance?
That's a good question. And number one, we have an awesome staff at Legal Aid. So I know in Edmonton, our criminal duty counsel group, we're about a dozen of us. And we're constantly talking about changes in the law, procedural changes in the different courtrooms. So that's a great resource, is to reach out to the individuals that we have at Legal Aid. As well as over time, you kind of develop various mentors that you have at the defense bar. So I've been lucky that I got a lot of great mentors that I reach out to. Another good key to develop those types of relationships, join the Lawyer Curling League. I'm in the Lawyer Curling League, and I've met so many people a heck of a lot smarter than me, and I'm constantly talking to them. And all of that is, of course, on top of everything such as following up with case law, making sure that you have your notifications for CanLII. I still frequently read the Alberta Court of Appeal decisions. So that's just part of our general practice to keep up. But sort of the number one people that we reach out to are the great people at Legal Aid, because there's a lot of people working behind the scenes that can answer a lot of questions for us on the fly, because we're not just doing this alone.
Also, I am part of CBA, the Canadian Bar Association, and anybody can join. It's national. I've had conversations with justices at provincial and federal level. I've received mentorship from them as well. Crowns do attend as well, and other members of the bar. So they're very helpful, and also the Advocacy Society. And with Legal Aid, we have a lot of senior lawyers or executives now, or managing directors that have years of experience. So they're there for advice as well. And we have each other. It's a phenomenal team that I work for example, that we can always turn for advice. And I know that we do have a practice advisor with the Law Society of Alberta. I've turned to him a couple of times, actually, even as a duty counsel. Most recently, 3 weeks ago, I had a situation that came up in court, and nobody knew what to do with it. So I called the Law Society and asked to speak with the practice advisor for further guidance.
Okay, thank you, guys. We have a question here looking through. Do you help support individuals with their immigration status? So if there's immigration related issues, is that something they can turn to for duty counsel?
And I can briefly address that. As far as sort of like a duty counsel the day of helping out somebody with immigration, no, that is not something that we have, although that doesn't really exist. There's not the same sort of thing for immigration matters like docket court, which is where we're regularly staffed. But certainly Legal Aid, we have actually a team of staff lawyers with Legal Aid that do immigration matters, as well as a lot of our great roster lawyers take on immigration matters. So if there is somebody that needs help with an immigration matter, a hearing, advice, they can always give Legal Aid a call, and somebody will be there to help them.
Thanks. We had a question. If someone has court that day, how early should they try to be there to ensure they have a chance to speak with duty counsel?
Well, they can call, if not sure, they can call Legal Aid. Legal Aid will definitely put them through to one of the duty counsels to address their concerns. I wouldn't wait until the day of court. There are situations where that has happened. Even a day before, prior to, if they know they have something coming up and they need some legal advice or direction on that matter. The sooner they can get hold of duty counsel, the better. That kind of puts duty counsel in the position to possibly run something by the Crown if that's required to do so prior to court. Worst case scenario, if they were to, approach duty counsel on the day of, and we don't have all that information handy, we just adjourn it over accordingly to obtain that information, whether that's obtaining disclosure or information from the Crown's office, or even providing further information to the Crown's office in order for them to consider that for that individual when looking into providing an ACR position, for example.
Okay, thanks. I see we had a question. Do you have any advice for a junior lawyer that may want to eventually become duty counsel, but doesn't quite yet feel confident because of the on-the-fly nature of the job?
Yeah, go to court. Spend as much time as you possibly can in docket court, even in and out of trial courts. Go down to the cafeteria, find the smartest looking person there, sit down and start talking to them. Just sort of really immerse yourself in the courtroom. That is, in my opinion, the absolute best way to learn. And as far as duty counsel goes, we went over this time and time again during the presentation, but every day is different. So the more time that we spend in court, the more time that we spend talking to justices, crowns, other defense counsel, the better we get at our job. So definitely, if this is something that you're interested in, show up in court. Another thing, if you do show up, find duty counsel, talk to them. We're constantly talking to students, young members of the bar, and helping them out. So certainly, if this is something you're interested in, then show up in court.
Okay, thanks. I know we're getting close to our time here, so we'll try to get through maybe one or two more questions. One here. Someone's just looking for confirmation. So if is it correct that an aggressor cannot access a lawyer from legal aid if the victim's already been represented by a legal aid lawyer? So I think that's maybe someone asking if, let's say, it's a victim might be receiving assistance from legal aid for an unrelated matter or something related. Is the other party still able to access legal aid to get either duty counsel assistance or a roster lawyer?
I'm assuming this question is probably coming from someone who has a family matter. I don't see why not. I mean, they too have the right to have access, to the services. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure when it comes down to the family law certificates here, I'm pretty sure it's assessed on individual basis. However, if they're getting referred out to roster lawyers, I'm pretty sure that shouldn't be an issue. I've ran across something in the criminal courtroom, in the domestic courtroom. However, there was two of us. So when the victim did show up to court and spoke with one of the duty counsels, and now we had the accused there as well, I had my colleague send me a message, and then I was able to provide assistance and advice so that there was no conflict, having one duty counsel give advice and guidance to two people on the same matter.
Okay, thanks. So I know we still have some questions coming in, but it is 12:59. As Jay mentioned, she is actually in court as we speak, just on a bit of a break. So we did just want to wrap up, but again, we did want to say thank you, Cameron and Jay, for taking the time today to share your knowledge and expertise, and a big thank you to everyone for attending. I'm also going to place a link in just the chat as well, because again, we'd love to hear back from you about today's session, get any feedback you might have, suggestions for future webinars as well. And then also, I'm just going to pull up a last slide here. 1 moment, sorry, it's always the juggling of windows. So we did also just want to do a shout out that, as it's been mentioned a couple times, this is Legal Aid Alberta's 50th anniversary this year. Legal Aid was incorporated in 1973, and we've been protecting the rights of Albertans since then. If you're curious to learn more about Legal Aid's history and then the work that we're doing now to improve services for Albertans, you're welcome to visit our website. I'm just going to copy that as well into the link, so that way you're into the chat, so you're able to go through and look at it at a later time. But otherwise, it's 1 o'clock. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Cameron and Jay, for taking the time today, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Wyatt. And big thank you to the people that were sending those little hearts. That was great. I liked that.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.